This is Villa Kenworthy, and today we're making beer. Hello, I'm Dennis, and this is Villa Kenworthy. I'm here with my buddy Heath from Shepherd's Forge. It's a YouTube channel that he has, and today we're going to make beer.
Hi guys, my name's Heath. I have a YouTube channel as well. It's Shepherd's Forge, and Dennis and I have been friends for a while. We've both dabbled in beer making, and we both really like beer, so we thought we'd do this fun little collaboration together.
Here's a quick view of the setup. I'll just give you a little tour around. This will be my first video using the Anvil Foundry system. I've used it a couple of times prior to this video just to get familiar with it and make sure I knew what I was doing before I got involved. One of the issues that I did have, which we'll see a little bit later, is I had a stuck mash, and that had to do with my grain mill and milling the grains a little bit too fine. So I just try to have everything prepared and ready to go before we get started. This is the Anvil bucket fermenter. We'll probably see more of this in later videos, but I did purchase one for use to ferment and then as a bright tank as we go. And this is the inside of the boil kettle. Just thought I'd give it a look before we got going. It's kind of similar with the downspout as the fermenter as well. Alright, so today we're going to be making some beer. I'm going to be making one of my favorite beers. It's a Hefeweizen. I'm a huge fan of wheat beers, and typically you have at least a 50-50 grain bill between your other malts and then your wheat malt. So I have already pre-milled my malts, and I have them separated in here. I also have some rice hulls that I pointed out earlier, and I'm going to show you how I incorporate those to keep from getting a stuck mash. In addition to the wheat grains and then the malted barley, I'm going to add some flaked oat into the mix. I think it gives a nice mouthfeel, and it's typical for these styles of beer. And what we have here, this right here is going to be our work chiller. You'll be seeing this towards the end of the process. It's how we cool our beer off. We run cold water through this coil, and it dissipates the heat inside the kettle, brings it down to a temperature that's safe to pitch the yeast so that we don't kill them. This right here, this is the malt basket. It holds the grains inside the brew kettle, and then it'll let the wort drain through, and then so I can recirculate it to the top, and then I get a high efficiency mash. It's also got this on top. The water goes through this and trickles down, and it keeps it from pooling in one spot, so it spreads it out and it lightly goes through, drains to the bottom, and then we recirculate it back to the top. So we got our temperature up, and it's time to put in the malt pipe. Just drop that right down in there, and you want to make sure you check your water level before you do this to get your accurate reading. And now we need to put in the ring that's going to support the malt pipe whenever we're done with our mash, and we need to set it up to drain. This is what it looks like looking right down into it. And now we're going to start adding the grains. We do that a little bit at a time, and then we're going to get them submerged in the water. Then we're going to stir them up. You're just kind of making a little bit of a swirl. You're kind of mixing it in like oatmeal. That was the first set of grains, and now I'm going to mix in the wheat with some oats, and then we'll add some of the rice hulls, mix that up really good, and then we'll add those in the same way we did the other malt. It's 5 pounds to 5 pounds of wheat malt and then a Pilsner malt. And then you just want to stop every now and again and make sure that you mix them in really well. That's going to keep you from getting dough balls. And see, it looks kind of like porridge. And we go ahead and set the plate in. That's going to disperse the water. And now I'm going to start setting up the pump. Just connecting everything for the inlet and outlets for the pump and the vessel. A lot of these directions will come with the machine so that you can learn and figure them out as you go. But I just wanted to give kind of a down and dirty and quick run through of setting the machine up. We'll go more in detail in later videos. This right here is for recirculating it. It fits right in the lid, and that's how it recirculates, comes up through there. This right here is the control valve. You can adjust that for the flow. Alright, so we're in the first step. We're doing our protein mash. What say we pour beer?
I like that idea.
Alright, cheers.
Cheers.
And this is me just heating up some sparge water. I just put it on the stove and let it get to temperature, about 170 degrees, and then hold it. This is going to be my primary fermenter. I haven't used it for a while, but it's also a bottling bucket. We're just going to start it off in there, and then we'll move to the other fermenter. And this is my grain mill. It's an inexpensive one. It's not as good as some of the roller mills, but it's what I have available, so I like to save money, and that's what I'm using. And our mash has been setting for a little bit, so now we're going to get ready to start the recirculation process. I have everything hooked up and plugged in. We'll open the valve to prime the pump. You can see it go through there. And let's kick it on, and then we'll select the flow that we want for this mash as it recirculates. The one important thing is you don't want it going too fast, because you'll suck all of the liquid out of the bottom, and then it'll get stuck on top, and then it's not recirculating. You can actually dry out that pump. So that's one thing to pay very careful attention to. Now we have the flow we want. I'll go ahead and put in the plate. As you can see, it just drains through the holes, and that helps us keep from channeling. And now it's time to bump up the power so that we can get to our mash temperature. The protein rest, I like to have it at 120 degrees for about 15-20 minutes. And the reason we do a protein mash is with all of these, the wheat and the oats in there, it helps to get a better mash out of it if you do a protein rest first at a lower temperature. I think it helps to convert the sugars. I'll have to get back to you with the science on that. I can't remember off the top of my head. And we've been recirculating for a little bit, and it's already starting to clear up as the filter bed works. I got a little bit of the grains that came out and sitting on top of there. This is where I started noticing I'm having an issue with the stuck mash, so I had to stir it a little bit. And whenever we're done with the mash, you pull it out. It's got some little legs on it. You just turn and you set on that ring, and it'll set up, and then you let it drain. And it did take a while to drain due to that stuck mash. The next step, once it drains, is you want to pour your sparge water on top, and that's going to help get the rest of the sugars out. Once you're done with the sparge, everything's drained out, lift the malt pipe out, and I like to set it in the bucket to finish draining. And this is what it looks like as we're getting it set up to boil. And you want to make sure you get your hops prepared once you get to this stage so you can start the first hop addition. I put them in this tea strainer. I'm not sure I'd recommend that. They overswelled, and I'm not sure I got the full amount of bitterness out of them that I'd like to. But it was worth a shot to try to keep some of it out of the wort. And we've been boiling for a while, and I did move the program to near the utility sink that I have here in the near future, but I wanted to get the wort chiller set in there so that it can sanitize. You do this 15-20 minutes before you're done with your boil. That just makes sure that it's sanitized and it doesn't add any bacteria once you start to chill the wort. I did move everything over to the utility sink just so I could run the cold water through the wort chiller and be able to drain it right in the sink. This process can take 15-20 minutes. You just want to make sure you get everything cooled down as fast as possible to a safe pitching temperature. I use the LCD screen to help monitor the temperature, but I also had another sanitized probe that I used. And as everything cools, you can see some of the solid proteins and stuff like that rise to the center. There will be a lot of that in the bottom when we're done with the chill. And after it was cooled off, I drained it into the fermenter. I use that screen to help oxygenate it and pull some of the trub out. And that's what it looks like whenever we're done draining it. A lot of material. Everything was cooled off. This is pitching the yeast. I see all that foam. That's just from the oxygenating the wort. Now I'm getting the lid put on the bucket. I did sanitize these, and that's an airlock. You want to make sure that has sanitizer in it and no bacteria on it as well, just like everything you do. And my beginning gravity was pretty high. I think it was due to that stuck mash, 1.060. It's a pretty high gravity to start with. And slowly starting fermentation, and then the longer it goes, it gets into a rapid fermentation where it bubbles like that. Usually takes 7-8 hours, maybe up to 15 hours to get the fermentation started. Then it should be pretty vigorous. So that's our third go around with the Anvil Foundry brewing system. I really enjoy it. This is the first video I've made with it, as I mentioned before, and we're going to keep going with it and experimenting and seeing how different styles turn out, but I will be making probably a handful of wheat beers to begin with. We did end up having a stuck mash for a little bit. I think that has something to do with my grain mill, so I might have to make some adjustments there. But what do you think? Come back in a month and check this out?
Yeah, most definitely. I really enjoy the science behind beer making, and the entire process is actually very interesting to watch. I had a great time. I definitely want to come back and make some more beer, and everything he's made so far has turned out absolutely amazing.
All right, well, thank you for joining us with Villa Kenworthy. I hope to have more videos coming out soon. Just trying to get back into the mix, you know, making the changes and job a couple of times, and then having a kid in the process, and then all of that surrounding the health issues that have struck our nation. I managed to make it through, so now I'm trying to get back to YouTube. Well, thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.